There's one statement I've seen made in autistic circles that's probably caused more arguments than any other. Now and again, someone will say, "Autism is not a disability," and all hell can break loose. The problem with the statement lies in whether the question of, is autism a disability or not, has a definitive answer at all. Whilst it's fair to say that governments and medics try to answer it in the form of lists of who qualifies for state benefits, healthcare options or legal protections, such lists don't always automatically qualify an individual for help if they have a particular diagnosis. Many countries, such as the US and UK, subject claimants to an assessment of how their condition or difference impacts their lives, which can determine how much help, if any, that they receive. There's also a large number of people who qualify for such help on paper, but don't choose to take it. People who consider themselves disabled all have a form of impairment, but impairment and disability are two separate concepts. An impairment is a reduced ability in performing a given task when compared against the average level of ability. It is not by definition a disability unless the person with the impairment feels it has a detrimental effect on their life. Many people with impairments have adapted so well to their circumstances, their ability to function in their lives is comparable to people who are unimpaired. They may need assistance, appliances or adaptations to civil infrastructure such as ramps or wheelchairs in order to achieve that functionality, but nonetheless, that functionality allows them to lead rewarding lives. They may consider themselves far less disabled than they would otherwise. Since my late 20s, I've been diagnosed with a form of arthritis that affects my ability. I cannot stand up without severe discomfort, and I require at the very least a walking stick to get around. I'm in pain all my waking hours, and it limits what I can do. I have to use powered transport for short journeys I would previously have walked. I can't rush anywhere. My walking pace is fixed at a maximum setting of slow. I had to change jobs because I couldn't stand up for very long, which was a necessary part of my previous career. I can't exercise the way I would like. I can't enjoy the countryside the way I used to, nor climb down the cliffs to the beautiful beaches I went to in my youth. By my own standards and expectations, I am disabled by my physical impairment. If I lived in a different country, my disability from the same impairment may be much worse. Because I live in a highly developed nation, there is greater availability of office-based work, so I was able to apply my vocational knowledge to a job where I could sit down all day. I live in a country with state healthcare, so I am able to take expensive medication that eases my pain enough to be able to work, when people I know even in other developed nations cannot afford the same medicine. I'm also lucky that I can afford a car, so I have a level of independence I wouldn't otherwise enjoy. There are adequate pavements providing an even surface for me to walk on. There are access ramps in many places I need to visit, so I don't need to negotiate stairs. And many shops and public buildings have automatic doors, which saves me wrestling with heavy doors whilst wobbling around on my walking stick. State-run healthcare is there for me should I injure myself. Whilst my physical impairment is still significantly disabling to the lifestyle I would otherwise wish to lead, my circumstances are a long way from being as disabling as they might be had I simply been born somewhere else. I benefit from both social and physical facilities that many people I know don't. My disability is not as severe, even though our impairments are the same. The same principles apply to autism, learning disabilities, intellectual disabilities, sensory disabilities, and any other differences or impairments in the way an individual interacts with their world in terms of communications, senses, or information processing. The disability of the individual is determined by how much it is mitigated by accommodations made for their needs. The other important factor is personal perception. Our individual state of mind has a direct influence on how we perceive our disability. Someone who is emotionally low, suffers from PTSD, is depressed or is being oppressed may see their lot in life, including their level of disability, in more negative terms. The thought that "If only I weren't disabled, I'd be so much happier," is one which passes through the minds of many disabled people. Whilst it's certainly true in some degree for most of us, how much significance we give to that idea and how often it occurs to us is affected massively by our emotional well-being. Someone who is listened to, has people around that they can trust, and is supported by social mechanisms such as awareness, acceptance and state aids in the form of healthcare and financial support if needed, is likely to lead a more fulfilling, happier life. Their individual perception of their disability will correspondingly be more optimistic. How we as a society treat our disabled has a direct impact on how disabled we as people actually feel. There is no way to accurately quantify disability because it's a personal subjective opinion. At this point in time, I don't find autism to be particularly disabling to me. Quite the opposite. I'm lucky enough, privileged as some would say, to be in a position to appreciate the upside of being autistic. There are benefits to my lifestyle that are directly attributable to my being autistic. There have also been times when being autistic was a significant disability to me. Not because I was any different, but because the inflexibility of others, the unfair expectations and their lack of understanding put me at a distinct disadvantage. In the education system, I suffered greatly. I've been bullied and taken advantage of. I've been discriminated against in society and in the workplace, losing out on jobs or promotions to less capable people who were more socially aware or popular. At those times, being autistic felt far more of a disability than it does now. The question of is autism a disability will never be answered because it's not a valid question. Without significant social change and cultural shift towards acceptance of different neurologies, many of us will always feel disabled, with only variation in degree. Only a fortunate few may be able to honestly say that they don't feel their experience of autism disables them at all. The absolute statement that autism is a disability and autism is not a disability will always be flawed. The only question we can honestly answer is, how much of a disability is autism to you right now? And that answer may change over time. Thank you for watching.